Sorry, but I know my rights. I am not required to identify myself to you.
That's not true. That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna say.
Okay, well, what can you quote me the law that tells me that I'm supposed to identify myself to you?
On August 2nd, 2018, deputies with the Pasco County, Florida Sheriff's Office pulled over a vehicle in which Marcus Andre Johnson, who is professionally known as Andre Rocks and is associated with the Wu-Tang Clan, was a passenger. His father was driving.
How are we doing tonight?
Doing well. How about yourself, sir?
Good. You got your driver's license registration on you, sir?
Yes.
You got your ID on you too, sir?
I'm a passenger. I'm not required to identify
In the
myself.
state of Florida, you are?
That's national law, Fourth Amendment.
In
I'm
the
not
state
required.
of Florida, you are?
Sir, I'm a passenger. I'm not required to identify myself to you.
So, look, you want to play that game? Okay, you can go ahead and get yours out. In the state of Florida, you are required to identify yourself, even as a passenger.
Listen, man, we're not somebody who likes to write tickets. Honestly, we ID you. We tell you about what's going on. We kind of pretty much just get you on your way.
Okay.
But you got to ID yourself, man.
I'm not required to identify myself to you.
The state of Florida, yes, you are, brother.
Florida's Stop and Identify law only allows officers to identify individuals, quote, under circumstances which reasonably indicate that such person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a violation of the criminal laws of this state or the criminal ordinances of any municipality or county. And while it requires drivers to present their license on demand, there is no similar obligation for passengers. The court would likely conclude that Mr. Johnson could not be charged criminally for refusing to identify himself in this situation.
Listen, my man, you can tell us who he is. We can do it from there.
That's my son.
Okay, what's his name?
Marcus Johnson.
What's that?
Dad, come
Marcus.
on.
Come on now. I don't want to go to jail tonight. I don't need this.
Listen, it's as
There's
simple
such
as
thing as the Fourth Amendment.
Marcus. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Here's my license, my
appreciate it, bro.
registration, my insurance.
Thank you. So, I'm going to hand this to Deputy Dunn.
Okay.
All I'm going to say is take a minute, talk to your son. Honest to God, it's really going to be fairly easy for you, okay? Deputy Dunn does not write citations. It's not something I do either. We kind of like to tell people about
all that.
It's kind of like a corrective thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But when it gets escalated to this, he doesn't want to identify himself. From there, he's interfering with an investigation, things like that. You can be taken to jail for that.
One of the Pasco County deputies states that Mr. Johnson can be taken to jail for interfering with an investigation if he refuses to identify himself. If an individual is truly interfering with a police investigation, they can be charged with resisting an officer in violation of Section 843.02 of the Florida statutes, which states that an individual who resists, obstructs, or opposes an officer, quote, in the lawful execution of any legal duty without offering or doing violence to the person of the officer shall be guilty of a misdemeanor of the first degree. In some situations, refusing to identify can be the basis for a resisting an officer without violence charge. When an individual is not legally required to identify themselves, they cannot be charged with resisting for refusing to do so. A court would likely determine that Mr. Johnson could not be charged with resisting an officer for simply refusing to identify himself under these circumstances.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want.
That's fine. Let me give you my attorney's card. Can I get my attorney's card for you? Sure. I'm gonna give you my attorney's card, and you feel free to give him a call.
I'm not gonna call him.
Okay.
I have no need to call him.
I like it.
You in the military?
I'm
Say, were you in
retired.
the military?
How you doing? And I would also like all of your cards and badge numbers.
Sir.
Okay. Sir?
Yes.
So the reason I pulled you over, I didn't get a chance to tell you, your license plate in the back is folded up, so it's concealing part of it.
Okay.
And all your lights are all messed up too, man.
Yeah, that motorcycle kind of crunched everything.
Okay.
And we're just going a few blocks.
Did he ID him?
He was starting to give me a name.
Yeah.
All of your names and badge numbers, please.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Huh? Excuse me, sir. Can you just shut the car off for me, please? Thank you very much. Have we done anything wrong, sir?
No.
Okay.
I'm a passenger, which means I'm not the subject of the investigation. He was operating the motor vehicle, which means that, honestly, legally speaking, I'm free to walk away if I'd like to.
Generally speaking, there is some truth to this statement. However, courts have found that because of the complicated dynamic of traffic stops, officers may reasonably detain passengers during the course of a traffic stop, even if they are not the subject of the investigation. Based in substantial part on this opinion, the Florida Supreme Court held in the 2017 case of Presley versus State that, quote, as a matter of course, law enforcement officers may detain a vehicle's passengers for the reasonable duration of a traffic stop without violating the Fourth Amendment. Under this interpretation of the law, the officers would have been well within their authority to detain Mr. Johnson had he chosen to walk away.
I'm sorry, but I know my rights. I am not the subject of the investigation. I was not operating a motor vehicle. I am not required to identify myself to you.
That's not true. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, well, what can you quote me the law that tells me that I'm supposed to identify myself to you? Because the Fourth Amendment says that I have the right to be secure in my papers and my persons from unlawful.
I think he was talking to a sergeant.
Okay, not a problem. Again, I'm going to ask, can I have your name and badge number?
Yes, sir.
Your name and badge number?
My name? Deputy Peeney.
Thank you. And yours, sir?
He's not. You don't have to worry about him.
Is he an officer of the law?
Nope.
Okay.
Just if you want to explain that and see if he gets out. If not,
okay.
then...
All right, guys. I'm going to be conducting an sniff on the exterior of the vehicle. All right, but in order to do that, you guys have to step out of the vehicle for me. All right? I'm not asking you to. I'm telling you to at this point.
What's up?
Ramos, I didn't even notice there's somebody else in the back.
Yeah, there is.
That's my brother.
Yeah, his.
Yeah, no, I saw him.
We'll step out of the vehicle.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
They're conducting a sniff on the exterior of the vehicle.
Go and put your hands behind your back.
Excuse me, am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest?
Grab his phone for me.
Am I under arrest?
Can we just hold this, sir?
After placing Mr. Johnson under arrest, the deputies searched the vehicle for drugs and did not find any. Mr. Johnson was taken to the Pasco County Jail and charged with resisting an officer without violence. In 2020, Mr. Johnson filed a federal lawsuit against Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nocco and Deputy James Dunn individually. The litigation is still pending. Overall, the Pasco County deputies get an F for displaying a fundamental misunderstanding of the Fourth Amendment, misrepresenting or misunderstanding Florida's identification laws, and for escalating a minor traffic infraction into an unlawful arrest. It is clear from the video that the Pasco deputies were either ill-informed regarding Florida's identification laws or blatantly misrepresenting them. At one point in the video, one of the deputies told Mr. Johnson that the other deputies were consulting with a sergeant, and it appears as though the deputies consulted with a supervisor before deciding to arrest Mr. Johnson. If the deputy was being truthful, then this suggests that the Pasco County Sheriff's Office may suffer from poor leadership. Although the deputies were not physically hostile or verbally abusive, their attitude and conduct was condescending and inflammatory. While it is true that the deputies would have been within their authority to arrest Mr. Johnson if he had attempted to leave the scene, that aspect of the encounter is essentially the only legitimate point that the deputies made, and their failure to consider the validity of Mr. Johnson's claims could result in a major settlement. Mr. Johnson gets an A-, because although he could have exercised his right to silence more tactfully, he remained calm and collected throughout the interaction, challenged the deputies' claims without becoming rude or vulgar, and demonstrated a relatively accurate understanding of the Fourth Amendment and identification laws in general. It is clear from the video that Mr. Johnson has some level of knowledge regarding civilian rights, and although he was mistaken about leaving a traffic stop, he accurately invoked his Fourth Amendment rights and did so in a respectable manner. At no point did Mr. Johnson physically resist the deputies, and he did an excellent job of maintaining a balance between invoking his rights and complying with the lawful demands of the deputies. I commend Mr. Johnson for standing up for his Fourth Amendment rights and for following up this interaction with the proper legal action.